Hello friends. This week's Ecstatic Buddhist Discourse is on the question of how do we negotiate the spiritual crisis. As you recall, we've talked about 5 stages of spiritual crisis, and we've also talked about 8 stages of samadhi, or in English that would be contemplation. In Punjabi it would be Lok, and in Sanskrit it would be samadhi. Early Buddhism, it's jhana. Okay, so these terms are synonyms for each other. Now it just so happens that the term jhana, if we check the etymology of that term, turns out that it's derived from a term that means to burn. There's some speculation that perhaps there's a relationship between the origins of the term jhana being to burn and something, perhaps burning being a metaphor for something. And it just so happens that those of my subjects and students and myself who have cultivated a contemplative life that we call a rigorous contemplative life that is successful in producing jhana every day, we find that the jhana effaces or erases our neurotic tendencies, our subconscious behaviors, our obsessions, and our compulsions. And it just so happens in the suttas, remember the Four Noble Truths is all about suffering exists, and there's a cause to our suffering, which has to do with our attachment or our craving for things. And the solution of the Four Noble Truths is in the fourth Noble Truth, which is by following the Noble Eightfold Path, somehow we get to a place where we have no more dukkha or suffering. Now the problem is very few Buddhists who claim to follow the Noble Eightfold Path actually ever get to a place where they're free of anxiety or suffering or dukkha. And it just so happens that very few Buddhists even recognize the term jhana and its validity. Well, my subjects and my case histories and my students and myself definitely have reported a reduction in neurotic tendencies and a reduction in anxieties. And the negotiation or the traversing of those 5 spiritual crises suggests that by leading a rigorous contemplative life that produces jhana every time one meditates, one will get to a place where they're free of anxiety. And that's supported by the definition of the 4th jhana in the suttas. The 4th jhana in the suttas is always defined in terms of several things, but one of those terms is adukkha, which means no dukkha, or no suffering. And since it's been my experience and the experience of my students and subjects that by getting to the 4th jhana our anxieties are relieved, then we conclude that the entire way to negotiate those spiritual crises is by deepening our contemplative life and becoming rigorous in our contemplative life to the point that we can actually produce jhana every time we sit, and we have to be quite rigorous in our contemplative life to be able to get to the point where we can experience the 4th jhana every time we sit in meditation. And part of that rigorousness is sitting in meditation every day. Turns out very few people who define themselves as contemplatives even meditate every day. But those people who experience jhana, or the contemplative religious experiences, they're meditating every day. And the typical method of meditating or style of meditating is most of us start our day with meditation, we end our day with meditation, and we will oftentimes find some time in the middle of the day to also meditate. And the reason why we meditate so much is, well, we're experiencing jhana, and or these, ecstatic altered states of consciousness of contemplation. So we're, why not meditate several times a day? Because we're experiencing these wonderful subjective states, and it turns out by doing so, our addictive behaviors disappear, because there isn't anything better than these contemplations, these deep altered states of consciousness, which are, ecstatic states that are characterized by bliss, joy, and ecstasy. Why not have that? Why not have it as often as you can? You can have it, and you can. Anybody can have it, every time they meditate, if they learn to meditate skillfully. But because most meditation teachers do not value jhana, we have to conclude that probably most of them have never had the experience of jhana. And if they haven't had the experience of jhana, then maybe it's because they don't even know how to meditate properly. And yet, these people are famous, meditation teachers, well-published meditation teachers. Maybe people should think about, whose book they're going to read. Just because somebody is famous or wealthy or powerful doesn't mean they understand the spiritual life or the contemplative life. So, friends, if you want to negotiate the 4 or 5 spiritual crises, then lead a rigorous contemplative life. And a rigorous contemplative life is not just the practice of meditation. It's also about being self-aware in every moment, so that you bring that lucidity of your psyche from the cushion in the practice of meditation, you bring it out into the rest of your life. Excuse me. And you become self-aware in every moment. Mindfully self-aware, always observing yourself, letting go of your anxieties. When the anxiety arises, let it go. Go back to your meditation object. Now, you might start with the practice of meditation. You might start with a meditation object, such as a mantra, or observing your breath, or scanning your body. But these are just introductory practices. These are for people who actually don't understand how to meditate. So they use this meditation object because they don't understand how to meditate, and they do that for a while. But friends, don't become obsessed with your meditation object, because all that meditation object is training wheels for an out-of-control mind. Once jhana begins to arise, then the phenomena that's characteristic of those ecstatic altered states of consciousness, they become your meditation object. That is, if you're a skilled contemplative. And so how you move from the first ecstatic state of jhana to the second is by using what arises in the first jhana, or ecstatic state, as your meditation object. And what is it that arises at that time? It's bliss and joy. And what is bliss and joy? Well, we know what joy is. What is bliss? Bliss is simply pleasant sensations while you're meditating. That's all. That's all bliss is. Bliss isn't any super fantastic thing, or at least it doesn't begin as a super fantastic thing. So we just bring our attention to our meditation object when we first sit down to meditate. And then when we find the pleasure and joy of meditation, then we move our attention from our meditation object to the bliss and the joy. And at the same time, we're working on letting go of tension and anxiety and mental activity. And then when the mind finally stills, well, you've just entered the second stage of contemplation out of 8. And then at that point, you use that stillness of the mind. You savor the stillness of the mind. You You savor the bliss and the joy of having a still mind. And that takes you to the third stage of contemplation, or jhana, as the term is used in early Buddhism. And by saturating our mind with bliss and joy and tranquility, the stilling of the mind, and equanimity, which is what arises in the third stage of contemplation, then if we begin every day with that, and we begin every day saturating our mind with those qualities, well, friends, you're going to be going throughout the day with bliss, joy, tranquility, or still mind, and equanimity. And of course, if you get to the fourth stage of contemplation, then you're also free of anxiety. And the trick is, if you have that experience in meditation, now the trick is to carry it with you as you move through your day. And if you begin and end every day with bliss, joy, a still mind, equanimity, and freedom from anxiety, then, friends, you're likely to have that throughout the day. And indeed, myself, my students, and my research subjects all report that when they bracket their day with meditation that produces deep contemplation to the stage that produces bliss, joy, tranquility, equanimity, and freedom from anxiety, then they have that throughout the day. They have that while they sleep at night. And why not, contemplate thus in the middle of the day? And most of these people do report that when they've got 5 minutes while they're waiting for the bus, or they're sitting on the commuter train, or they're waiting for the light to turn, well, why not go back into meditation? Why not savor that wonderful bliss, joy, tranquility, equanimity, and freedom from anxiety? And then when you get really skilled with that level of contemplation, then you no longer need the meditation object, is you can just sit and bring your attention right away to the bliss, joy, tranquility, equanimity, and freedom from anxiety. And then there's no meditation. You're going directly into contemplation, or what they call in Asia, samadhi, or jhana. So, friends, saturate yourselves in the characteristic phenomena of the contemplations: bliss, joy, stillness of mind or tranquility, equanimity, and freedom from anxiety. Thank you.